Leviticus 23 is the chapter where we find the feasts that Yahweh gave us. There are 8 feasts. However, many people think there are only 7. They either don't count the last or they united with the 7th, which is Sukkot, just like some do with Pesach and Matzot. But in general, there are 8 feasts. 4 in the beginning of the year, 4 at the end of the year. The year has 12 months, separates in 6 and 6 as 2 pillars, like Yakin and Boaz, the 2 pillars at the entrance of the temple. Yakin and Boaz as first and last, and as the 6 months and 6 months. That's why Yahushua came to fulfill the first feasts, and now the 2 witnesses come and the last 4 feasts will be fulfilled. We're starting the year, so we will celebrate Pesach very soon. So, of the 8 feasts, the first 4 happen on the first half of the year, 3 of them in the first month, the 4th in the 3rd month, but it is connected to the last of the 3. In fact, Pesach is connected to Matzot. The Omer Reshit is connected to Shavuot. Yom Teruah is connected to Yom Kippur, and Sukkot is connected to Shemini Atzeret. So now that I do like this, how interesting that, in a way, it's hard for me to do. You know, have you seen how in Star Trek they do this? They took this from Judaism because that's how they make a letter shin with the hen. And so 2 letter shins, which I find it hard here. They do this for the blessing. The shin of Shaddai, the fire of Yahweh, etc. But I was thinking how interesting that's how the feasts are. 2, 2, 2, and 2. They are connected with each other, and they are reflections one of the other, because Mashiach died in Pesach. Well, he was captured in Pesach, killed in Matzot. The last will be captured on Yom Teruah and killed on Yom Kippur. The congregation received the Ruach on Shavuot as a guarantee that they would be saved. Spiritually speaking, their souls, of course. In Sukkot, Shemini Atzeret is when the congregation will be transformed. So they will receive that which they were promised back in the day, a new body. Sukkot has 7 days. Matzot has 7 days. So there are many connections that we find with the feasts. During Pesach, we drink, or it was custom to drink, 4 cups of wine. During Yom Teruah, there are 4 different sounds that you can, or that you have to make with the shofar. So 4 and 4. Each of the cups are connected to each of the first 4 feasts. Each of the shofarot are connected to each of the last 4 feasts. The last and great day is Shemini Atzeret, when the last trumpet will sound and the chosen few will be harvested. So I'm just talking in general so that you guys understand a little bit about all the feasts and their importance and how they're connected in general. But now we will focus on Pesach. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, the appointed times of Yahweh, which you are to proclaim as set apart gatherings. My appointed times are these. So you see how it says, the appointed times of Yahweh. He doesn't say the appointed times of the Jewish people, as many claim and think. He doesn't say even the appointed times of the Yahudim. It says the appointed times of Yahweh. So if you serve Yahweh, These appointed times are important to know. The appointed times, these are like meetings with him. These are times in which the spiritual energy of the year is at the highest point, and when we can get closer to Yahweh in a way, for he chose those days and make them set apart from the calendar, because he would manifest on those days and do certain things that we needed to rehearse and keep in order to recognize when they would happen, if we do them right, because the Jewish people would celebrate Pesach and all the feasts, and they still didn't recognize Mashiach. So speak to the children of Israel and say to them, the appointed times of Yahweh, which you are to proclaim as set apart gatherings. You are to proclaim as set apart gatherings. My appointed times are these. 6 days work is done, but the 7th day is a Shabbat of rest. Right? So you see how it starts when it comes to appointed times, important times. The first important day is the Shabbat, which happens every week. It's a day to be set apart. A set apart gathering. You do no work. It is a Shabbat to Yahweh in all your dwellings. These are the appointed times of Yahweh, set apart gatherings which you are to proclaim at their appointed times. So now it goes on to speak about the 8 that I have mentioned already. It says, verse 5, remember that they add the word moon there, sadly. In the first month on the 14th day of the month, between the evenings, is the Pesach to Yahweh. What they call Passover, because that is when the spirit of destruction passed over the houses of the Yahudim, because we had the blood of the lamb on the doors. So when the spirit of death came, if the spirit saw that we had the blood of the lamb, then it would pass over that house and go to the next one. So now we have the blood of Mashiach. That's why we celebrate Pesach and we take the blood, so that the enemy cannot destroy us, but has to pass over. And they would put the blood on each side and on the top to represent Yahweh as first and last, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, between the evenings, is the Pesach to Yahweh. This part right here is one that causes a lot of issues, because, as I mention all the time, the Jewish celebrate everything according to their wrong calendar, which is lunar. That's why they add the word moon right here, even though it's not in the original. Since they follow the moon, to them, the day starts at 6 p.m. It goes from 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. So the day starts with the night. So between the evenings, the evening of, for instance, the 14th, if we see it as lunar, then it would be the first half of the day. And then that would take us all the way to different day, different evening of the 15th. However, since they follow the lunar calendar and have all the issues with interpretation, they translate this, because they write here evenings, verse 5, it says right here, Be'in Harbim, or Harbaim. Erev is evening. Now you see here that it is plural, because it has the Yud Mem. So between the afternoons, in between, this is between, this is afternoons, this is Pesach to Yahweh. between the afternoons. Now, nowhere in scriptures do we see that the day has different afternoons or several evenings. There's only one afternoon, which is afternoon. There is one morning, one day, one afternoon, one night. Then we go to the next day, right? That's how it is. And that's how we see it throughout scriptures. However, because of the wrong interpretation in Judaism, they say that there are several evenings within a day. So they have it that from noon or 12 till 3 p.m., that is the first evening. And then from 3 to 6, that's the second one. So to them, Pesach is celebrated at 3 exactly, at 3 p.m. because it's between the two evenings, which they claim that's two evenings. However, when we see it like there is one evening per day, per 24-hour period, then by saying in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, between the evenings or between the afternoons, it would refer to the afternoon of the 14th and the afternoon of the 15th, in between those two afternoons or evenings. Since the lunar calendar starts at 6 p.m., if you were to say between evenings, that's a whole day. So there would be any point in saying it, because if you do it during the day, it would be between the two evenings, the one of the 14th and the one of the 15th. So since they follow a calendar in which the day starts at night, they have to interpret this as being two evenings within one same day. And just to explain this, let me go to the feast of Yom Kippur, where we find something very similar. On the 10th day of this 7th month is Yom HaKippurim. It shall be a set apart gathering for you, and you shall afflict your beings. Listen to this. And you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh, and you do no work on the same day, for it is Yom Kippurim. Remember that it said on the 10th day, Yom HaKippurim, to make atonement for you before Yahweh your Elohim. It is a Shabbat of rest to you, and you shall afflict your beings. You shall afflict your beings. They interpret this as fasting, doing a fast. So it is not saying literally to fast, but it is what is interpreted as a way to afflict your being. So you shall afflict your beings. On the 9th day of the month, at evening, or when the afternoon comes, from evening to evening, you observe your Shabbat. From evening to evening. But if the day, according to Judaism, starts at 6 p.m. when the evening comes, then why would Yahweh write this? There would be no need to mention it. Once again, second time on the same chapter. Because it said on the 10th. On the 10th. So if the feast is on the 10th, and if the calendar was, as they say, lunar, then 6 p.m. would start the 10th until the next 6 p.m. would start the 11th, right? So from evening to evening would be a whole day. Yet Yahweh specifies on the 9th day of the month at evening. But if the calendar is lunar, then at evening would be already the 10th. So why mention the 9? But if the evening of the 9 still the 9, then that means the day starts during the morning. And that's why Yahweh had to say on the 10th is Yom Kippur, but you have to afflict yourself starting on the 9 on the afternoon. Your affliction must go from the 9th till the 10th, from evening to evening. I hope that's understood. So we see two evenings here, and he's talking about 2 days, that of the 9th and that of the 10th. So the same we should interpret when talking about Pesach. Between the evenings, what evenings? If it starts on the 14th, then the second evening would be the 15th. And that's why Pesach and Matzot, those names are interchangeable, because the last 12 hours of Pesach are the first 12 hours of Matzot. 24 hours of the 14th, 6 in the morning, which is hour 0. 6 in the morning, we come to 6 p.m. That's when you can start to do the Pesach or eat the Pesach until 6 p.m. of the 15th, between the two evenings. Yahushua was eating on the evening of the 14th. He was captured on that night. He was judged and put on the cross and died right before the afternoon or the evening of the 15th. He died on the 15th, but before the evening. So he fulfilled Pesach because he died between the two evenings. I hope that's clear. When the afternoon came, they had already put him down of the cross and took him to the grave. So he fulfilled the feast by being captured, killed, and buried on Pesach and Matzot. He died without sin. That's why Matzot, the unleavened bread, put in the oven. Mashiach, without sin, put in the grave. I hope that's understood. So in the first month, Aviv, the month in which we are at the moment, on the 14th day of the month, between the afternoons, between the evenings, is the Pesach to Yahweh. Now, it is interesting as well that since Jews have it that between the evenings is 3 p.m., it's interesting that Yahushua actually died at that time exactly at that time, meaning that he not only fulfilled the true spiritual understanding of this verse, but he also fulfilled the wrong interpretation that the Jewish people follow. So they have no excuse. Also, if there were 2 afternoons in one day, from 12 till 3 and 3 till 6, then when we read about Yom Kippur and about having to afflict yourself with fast from evening to evening, the longest that would be from 12 till 6. That's 6 hours without eating. That is no affliction. Perhaps to some who may have issues with eating, but 6 hours of fasting is not that much. So it doesn't really make sense. I hope all of that is clear because it is very important. Yahushua was captured on the night of the 14th, killed on the day of the 15th, and he still fulfilled the feast because it was between the evenings that he had to be killed, and that's how it happened. Hope that's... Besides that, since I mentioned the Jewish people start the day at 6 p.m., the true starting of the day is 6 a.m. When Mashiach was going to be killed that year, the calendars aligned. However, there were 12 hours of difference because they would start 6 p.m. We would start 6 a.m. So that is why when Mashiach was on the cross, he had already fulfilled the feast, yet the Pharisees thought that the feast was about to start at 6 p.m. So they said, we got to take the body down before the afternoon so that we can go and celebrate Pesach. Not understanding that they had already fulfilled it. Because of their wrong interpretation of the calendar, they were 12 hours late in their minds. So on the 15th, in the first month of the 14th day of the month, between the evenings is the Pesach to Yahweh. On the 15th day of this new moon, well, on the 15th day of this month is the feast of Matzot to Yahweh. 7 days you eat unleavened bread. On the first day, you have a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work, which that is the day that Mashiach died. And you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh for 7 days. On the 7th day is a set-apart gathering. You still shouldn't work, but that is already the feast of Matzot. So on the calendar, the feast is on the 2nd of April, which is the 14th, as you can see right here. As always, on a Tuesday, for he died on a Wednesday.